If you feel exhausted all day long, but then wide awake the second that you get into bed, listen closely. That usually doesn't mean that your body forgot how to sleep. It means that your brain has learned the wrong nighttime pattern. And the more that you try to force sleep, the more your brain treats bedtime itself like a threat. So in this video, I'm going to show you 4 shifts that naturally retrain your brain to fall asleep. Number 1 is the mistake that most people keep repeating every single night without realizing that it's been making everything worse. And number 4 is the one nobody talks about, which is that the way you have been talking about your sleep to the people around you might secretly be keeping you stuck. Shift 1 is to stop trying to force sleep. And I know that this sounds completely counterintuitive, but this is the shift that must happen if you want to improve your sleep quickly. For years, I thought that falling asleep was something that I had to make happen, something I had to control, something I had to get right. So evening would come around and immediately I would go into fix-it mode. I would be monitoring my screen time and blue light. I would be calculating what time I had to be in bed by to get 8 hours of sleep. I was trying to figure out what I could do to make myself fall asleep as fast as possible with different supplements. Does any of that sound familiar? Because if it does, I want you to understand something really important. All of that trying and hyperfixating is exactly what's been keeping you awake. And here is why. Sleep is not something you force. It is automatic. Like your heart beating, like digestion, like your blood circulating. You don't try to make your heart beat, it just does. You don't try to circulate your own blood, your body does it for you. Sleep works exactly the same way. Your body already knows how to do it. It's been doing it your whole life. But the moment you start trying to control it, the moment sleep becomes something that you have to make happen, your brain interprets that as a signal that something is wrong, that there is a problem to solve. And if your brain thinks there's a problem, it doesn't relax. Instead, it stays alert, it stays awake, because that's what brains do when they think that there's a problem. And this is why so many sleep supplements or having a perfect sleep hygiene routine doesn't work long term. Not because they're bad ideas, but because they still keep your brain focused on trying to sleep. They're still sending the message that sleep is something that you have to work for. And sleep doesn't respond to effort. It responds to a lack of effort. Your brain lets you sleep when it gets the message that nothing important is happening. So the first shift is this. When you get into bed tonight, your only job is to rest, not to sleep, not to monitor how long it's taking, not to calculate how many hours until you have to get up in the morning, just to rest. And when you genuinely take the pressure off yourself, your brain finally gets the signal that there is nothing to solve, nothing to fix, nothing to stay alert for. And that is when sleep starts to happen all on its own. Quick side note, if you've been struggling with your sleep for months or years, you're definitely going to want to watch my free masterclass too. This is where I go deep into the exact strategy I teach my clients to end chronic insomnia for good, including the subconscious ways you've accidentally been sabotaging your sleep without even realizing it. That link is in the description. Now, shift 2 is to make bedtime feel safe again. When I was really struggling with insomnia, bedtime didn't feel peaceful. It didn't feel like rest. It felt like a test that I had to pass every single night. Even before I got into bed, my brain was already preparing for the battle. Will I sleep tonight? How long is this going to take? What if I can't function tomorrow? My day is going to be ruined. What if this never gets any better? And then by the time my head actually hit the pillow, my sympathetic nervous system, the stress response, was completely activated. My brain was ready for battle. It was ready to fight the thoughts racing through my mind. It was ready to fight the anxiety in my body. But that's because I was the one making sleep feel so important, which ends up triggering the stress response in the first place. When your brain associates bedtime with pressure and fear and uncertainty, staying awake actually starts to feel protective, like the right thing to do. Your survival brain goes, there's a reason to worry about nighttime. So it thinks, let's be on guard just in case. And so your brain keeps you alert. It's not to torture you, but it's because your brain genuinely thinks that it's helping you. So the shift here is to change what bedtime means to your brain. Instead of seeing bedtime as the moment where you have to fall asleep, start seeing it as your break. It's now your off-duty time. It is the one part of your day where nothing is required of you, where you don't have to be anywhere or do anything or produce anything. And even if you don't fall asleep right away, just remind yourself, At least I get to do nothing for a while. At least I get to just lie here and exist without having to be anywhere or to solve anything. And I genuinely mean that, because resting, even without sleep, is still giving your body something so valuable. Your nervous system is still benefiting from that stillness. And to give you some inspiration that this approach really works, here are some testimonials from members of my sleep success program who were able to completely turn their sleep around. You can pause the video if you'd like to read through these. So if there's one thing for you to focus on, it's this mindset right here. When I finally stopped putting so much pressure on whether I would sleep or not, or how fast I would fall asleep, that's when being awake at night stopped feeling like an emergency. It stopped feeling like a crisis. And when being awake stopped feeling like a problem, I started falling asleep much faster and sleeping longer through the night, because my brain finally realized that there was nothing to be on guard for. But there is another reason your brain may still be too active at night, even when you're exhausted, which is why shift 3 is to train your brain to slow down before bed. Here's something most people never consider. Your brain cannot go from 100 miles an hour to 0. It has to slow down gradually. There is no off switch. Instead, it's more like a dimmer switch where you have to turn it down gradually and slowly. But most people spend their entire day all the way into the evening thinking about what they have to get done, planning what needs to be planned, scrolling through their phone mindlessly, which keeps their brain overstimulated. And then they get into bed and just expect their brain to shut off on command and fall asleep. And then you end up getting frustrated when you're not asleep. And this is such a common pattern to fall into. And I also fell into this trap of thinking that I had to use every waking hour of my day to be productive. If your brain has been in high-speed mode all day, all it needs is a transition. Your nervous system needs a bridge from being on during the day to being allowed to rest at night. So what I started doing, and what made a really big difference, was giving my brain simple signals before bed that it was safe to slow down. Just simple things that told my nervous system that the day is over, that you can slow down now, nothing else is required of me tonight. So things like reading a few pages of a book that you like, journaling to get the thoughts out of your head, do a mental to-do list before getting into bed so you're already prepared for the next day. Even just like putting my hands on my chest and taking a few slow, deep breaths. Moving through my house slower. I'm not trying to rush to clean the kitchen. I'm just leisurely washing the dishes. This is really just about going into your evening with the mindset of letting the day be done. Letting this be time for you to just exist with yourself without having to be productive or get anything accomplished. It's just that little shift in mentality that shows your survival brain that the day is over, so it's okay to slow down now. But even if you stop forcing sleep and you start slowing down intentionally, there's still one identity shift that makes the change so much easier and, most importantly, long-lasting. Shift 4 is to stop identifying as someone who can't sleep. For years, I told myself things like, I'm a bad sleeper. It always takes me forever to fall asleep. Sleep is just hard for me. I'm an insomniac. My brain just goes a million miles an hour. That's just how I am. And every single time I repeated those thoughts, my brain was taking notes, because your subconscious mind is always listening. It is always taking in the story that you are telling about yourself, and it organizes your entire life experience around that story. Your brain then starts to look for evidence to confirm the story that you have been telling yourself in a self-reinforcing loop. So if you keep telling yourself that you're a bad sleeper, your brain keeps creating that reality. Not because it's trying to make your life harder, but because it believes you. It thinks that that's just who you are because that's what you keep repeating. And so it keeps delivering exactly what you keep describing. And this extends beyond just the thoughts in your own head. A lot of us, and I completely understand this, we start talking to the people around us about our sleep struggles. It could be your friends, your family, maybe even your coworkers, whoever you tend to spend time with on a daily basis. And that makes total sense. You want to feel understood. You want to be acknowledged for how hard this has been. But here's something worth being really honest with yourself about. If every conversation about your sleep is focused on how bad it is, how long this has been going on, how hopeless it feels, you're not just venting. You are rehearsing the story. You are reinforcing the identity. And every time somebody responds with, "Oh, that's terrible. I don't know how you even get through the day," as well meaning as that is from that person, it's confirming the narrative that you are someone who can't sleep. So, by all means, reach out for support, talk to people you trust, but start shifting the story you tell. Instead of, "My sleep is terrible and I don't know if it's ever going to get better," try, "I've been working on retraining my brain and I'm starting to understand what's been going on with my sleep. It's all starting to make more sense for me." Because the story that you tell others is the same story that you've been telling yourself, and your brain is listening to every word. And here's the thing to remember: your true self, the real you, is not a bad sleeper. The real you was born knowing how to sleep. You slept as a baby without even trying, without techniques, without supplements, without worrying about it. That natural ability never left you. It is still there. It's just gotten buried under a story that you've been telling yourself for a really long time. So the shift is to stop rehearsing the old story. Stop giving your brain those instructions and start introducing a different narrative. This does not mean that you pretend that everything is perfect. It just means that you stop rehearsing the old story. I started catching myself anytime I fell into the old story, and I started intentionally repeating what I also knew to be true. Things like, "My brain knows how to sleep, it just needs to feel safe." Or, "Even if I'm awake right now, I'm still resting and my body is still recovering." Or, "Sleep will happen when my body is ready. I don't have to try to make it happen." These thoughts may sound simple, but they create the safety that your brain needs to fully let go. This way of thinking might feel strange at first, and it might not feel completely true yet, and that's okay, because you're not trying to convince yourself of anything. You're just giving your brain a new way of looking at things. I think of it as you're presenting a different option to your brain for how to approach bedtime. And then over time, with repetition, those suggestions become the new default for your brain. They become the new pattern and the new identity. And here's what I now know after 8 years of being completely insomnia free and helping thousands of people get there too. The people who transform their sleep the fastest are not the ones who find the best sleep technique or the perfect supplement. They're the ones who stop identifying with the problem. Because the moment that you stop seeing yourself as someone who can't sleep, your brain stops organizing your whole life experience around that story. And from there, sleep starts to feel possible again. And this is the real point that most people miss about falling asleep fast. You don't have to fight your brain to fall asleep. You just have to show it gently that resting is safe. If your brain learned that nighttime means pressure, fear, or alertness, then the mindset of forcing sleep is keeping that pattern alive. And when you stop making wakefulness a crisis and you stop monitoring every minute that you're awake and you start giving your brain calm safety signals, that pattern can change quite quickly. Your sleep isn't gone forever. Your body didn't forget how to sleep. It just learned a pattern which can absolutely be retrained. The goal is not to control your sleep. The goal is to create the conditions where sleep can come to you. If this video helped you, make sure to send this to someone you know who's been struggling with their sleep, because this is the approach that no one else is talking about and is the one that actually makes the biggest difference. And if your biggest struggle is waking up in the middle of the night and not being able to fall back asleep, go watch this video next. I show you exactly what to do when your brain wakes up at 3 a.m. and starts spiraling, and you can watch it right here.